Hi guys, we are going to create a nighttime scene today. So I'm going to be using these distress colored inks right here. I've colored up my images. I'm using the Brentwood Owl Halloween Trick or Treat stamp set by Jessica Lynn Original. Okay, so I wanted to create a glowing nighttime scene behind my little owl. So what you want to do for that is get a ink blender. I'm using the small round one. I'm going to start with peacock feathers, and I am going to use this. Have you ever used this before? This is the Distress Refresher. It's supposed to extend the life of your distress inks. My little pads are clean. They're not soaked with ink too much, so it's hard to get a lot of ink on there when you're first using the ink for the first time. So I am going to try and use this to see if it helps make my pads more juicy. So I'm just going to spray a little bit in there, and hopefully that will help me out. So I'm just going to work in a circular motion, working my way to the center. And I'm going to put lots of layers on here, so it's okay if it looks a little blotchy at first. I am using watercolor paper. This is a no-name watercolor paper. I got it from a paper store. I've heard the Bristol Smooth works really well for blending these inks, so you probably don't have to work as hard if you have that paper. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with, let's see, I'm gonna go in with my seedless preserve. I'm going to switch out my little round blender and use a new one. See how it's going to take a while for me to get that paint on there since it's a new one. So what I'm going to do is not put too much of the ink in the center, okay? Because I want the center to be brighter than the edges. I am just working on a piece of wax paper to protect my surface. Now I'll go in with the wilted violet. We'll use the same dauber. Okay, let's go in with the blueprint sketch. I'm going to use my blue one. Still trying to keep that center the lightest part of my card. And now to make it really look like a night scene, I'm going to go in with the black soot color. Now it's really going to be hard for me to get that black soot on here. Try and keep the center lighter. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep that center lighter. And I'm going to go back in with some purple. I use the seedless preserve. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry. And then we can add some stars, and that's really going to make the background pop. I'm just using some white gloss acrylic paint. I'm going to spritz it with water to water it down. Just a little bit. And I'm just going to flick on so it leaves little dots. And I want to put a little bit more acrylic paint. I watered it down too much, not enough paint. Now I've gotten my fingers really messy. There was a film on top of the paint, dried paint, so I had to pick off the film with my fingers. Okay. There we go, that's much better. And I will be cutting down the panel so it fits on an A2 size card. See how cool it looks with the stars. So that is going to look awesome behind my little scene. So I decided to use a pink and Maine die. I used this one here. It's called the Cloudy Stacks die, I think. Oh, Cloudy Frames die. I used the largest one. And what I want to do is pop up the frame. So I'm actually going to cut out 2 more here, glue them together so the frame is a little bit lifted. You can also cut out some fun foam if you didn't want to stack up a bunch of die cuts. Sometimes the fun foam gets stretched out and you have to kind of push it back in, trim it up a bit. So that's why I chose to do it this way. Make sure you're lining them up correctly. I just lined it up wrong. But that's the good thing about using the liquid glue. You have time to maneuver things. So I'm just going to push these together so they're lined up perfectly. And then I'm going to line up this piece. So I just want to make sure that's all lined up, and then I'll put something heavy on top for it to dry. I'm going to try and use this tree from the Leafy Tree backdrop. It comes in portrait or landscape. This one's the portrait. So I just cut a portion out of it. I'm going to snip off the frame. And then I'm going to put this up against the edges. So I could also cut this out with my frame die that I used to get a perfect alignment. But I think I did pretty good. And then I will trim it right here. So maybe I will run this through with the die. Okay, so I cut that little tree out, and now it's going to fit up in the corner. So let's get down the frame first. Okay, let's glue that on. I'm going to use the liquid adhesive so I could wiggle it around. I just want to make sure it's in the center. Okay, I think that looks good. I will put something heavy on there for it to dry. Let's add some glue to the back of this panel here. And I'm just going to give that a nice press, make sure it is flat down. I don't want it to dry with any bubbles. So now for the fun part, we are going to lay out our scene here. So this is going to be open sideways. I've got my little owl. So I know my little tree branch is going to go up top here, so we could add that. That's a for sure thing. So let's add some glue. I never plan out my cards ahead of time. I think it's just fun trying to come up with it as you go. So it's always interesting to see how it turns out in the end. So I want my little owl. Let's move this out of the way. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so we've got our little owl here. Now I cut this out with my brother Scan and Cut, so I cut it kind of on an angle here because the way I had the grass dotted in at the bottom here. So it doesn't look really good like this because then it's kind of like floating in the sky. So I want to overlap the frame just a little bit so that looks like it's in the background. And then I'll add this guy in front. And this little guy is going to be peeking out. And then this little cat, we could have him sitting up in the tree with his little tail dangling down. So I think that's going to work. So I'm going to pop some of these images up here. So we'll put some foam dots in the center of him. So I don't want to put the foam dots all the way to the edge because I want the edge to kind of sit on that frame. So before I glue these down, I'm going to tuck this one in behind and glue it straight to the cardstock. So he looks like he's behind all these pumpkins, peeking out. He looks a little scared. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue down this piece. Okay, so there's my little kitty sitting in the tree looking out into the moon, and then this little guy peeking out from behind these pumpkins. I think it turned out really cute. The center looks like it's glowing, so there's like a moon in the background. And I'm just going to stamp in a sentiment from the stamp set. It's just a bunch of hocus pocus on the inside. So I will use the Nuvo Hybrid ink pad. So let's practice this on a scratch piece of paper before we stamp it on our card base. Okay, that's going to look really nice. So I'm just going to center this, stamp straight down, and then straight up. And of course I messed it up. But not too bad. It just looks like a little shadow there. I stamped it perfect on my practice sheet. That's why I like using the Misty, because you can't make a mistake. So next time I will learn my lesson. So I hope you guys liked this card. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys create a card of your own using this cute little stamp set. It is out of stock right now. You can pick it up at Jessica Lynn Original, or you can click on the link in my shop to get an email alert when it's back in stock. If I get enough requests, I will order this little stamp set again. So it will be here in plenty of time for Halloween. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.